Media, Pennsylvania. A town so quiet at night, you can hear your own breath, exactly the kind of place where nobody expects history to break a lock right now. They weren't carrying weapons. Their real tool was patience, because tonight the prize isn't money, it's proof, tonight only. The security was mostly faith. Faith that no one would dare. But faith doesn't stop a careful hand or a determined mind every time. File by file, they took what wasn't supposed to be seen. A paper trail quiet, heavy, and dangerous to the people who wrote it. Back then, over 1,000 documents, quiet as snow, heavier than steel. Each page a sentence the public was never meant to read, ever again. They didn't run like thieves. They moved like couriers, because the cargo wasn't cash. It was a message for everyone. In a small-town car trunk, a national scandal begins to breathe. The paper inside is quiet, but it's not harmless. Not ever. The next day, they didn't find broken glass. They found absence open drawers, empty shelves, and the sudden certainty that someone had seen too much that morning. Within minutes, the office turns into a pressure chamber. Phones ring, names are repeated, and every second feels like it's already too late, right there. This wasn't a robbery that left bruises. It left a vacuum. And the emptiness tells them one thing: someone came for truth, not money, this time. By midday, it's no longer who took documents. It's who will expose what's inside them. The hunt changes shape. In daylight, inside the bureau, it becomes a case with a name, something you can file, track, contain. But paper like this doesn't stay contained for long, at all. Back in a borrowed room, the night continues under one lamp. They sort the pages like they're handling something alive because, in a way, they are, together still. Then a phrase appears, something that sounds like a program, not a mistake. A name that feels too deliberate to be accidental, by design. Page after page, the instructions don't match the public voice. It's not just information, it's a manual for something the government won't say out loud to anyone. They don't try to sell it, they try to release it. One envelope, dropped into the system, hoping the system can't swallow it whole, for good. The envelope lands on a desk, like a live wire. A reporter turns pages, then turns pale, because the documents don't read like rumors. They read like procedure, not myth. When the story hits ink, it stops being a secret. A press becomes a siren, turning private instructions into public knowledge, at once. The first shock isn't on the street. It's in living rooms. People hear the words and realize someone broke into power and brought receipts in print. Now the mission isn't investigation, it's containment. Because once paper escapes, the real danger isn't what was stolen, it's what will be believed by millions. The strangest part is how normal it looks. A quiet town, a plain building, and inside it, a secret that's already left the room. Quietly first. They protected the files with something invisible. Assumption. The belief that fear alone was offense. By itself. Stolen paper turns into evidence the moment it's organized. The boxes aren't hiding anything now. They're preserving it for later. And then the name surfaces in the public space. COINTELPRO. Not a rumor. An architecture. A system with rules. In writing. People imagine power as guns or speeches. But sometimes, power is a file room, quiet, systematic, and aimed at the right names, on paper. They were breaking the law, but not breaking people. The rule was simple. No injuries, no weapons, only exposure, in public. They weren't scared of a missing lock. They were scared of credibility collapsing, because trust, once cracked, spreads fast, like fire. Now it turns into a shadow war. Plain clothes, quiet questions, eyes everywhere. The system searching for the people who exposed it, right now. Somebody might have noticed a shape in the dark, but nothing looked dramatic. And that's how the biggest nights pass quietly, like this. To share it, they had to reproduce it, copy by copy, turning a single stolen stack into something the Bureau could never fully retrieve, ever again. Even when names disappear under black ink, the structure stays. And structure is enough to prove intent on record. Right here is the transformation. A secret stops being a secret. It becomes a story, and stories travel faster than threats every day. They start with the usual questions: who, how, why. But every answer opens a worse question. What happens if the public believes it at scale? The risk wasn't the lock. The risk was what sat behind its sensitive material, guarded by the assumption that fear was enough back then. The pages don't just accuse individuals. They suggest a design, something coordinated, repeated, something that points upward to power. In a place like this, anonymity isn't suspicious, it's natural. The town itself becomes cover, and the night hides everything in plain sight. At night, some documents are meant to stay in drawers forever. The moment they move through a hallway like this, they stop being files and become a threat instantly felt. COINTELPRO becomes a word people learn fast because it explains a feeling that dissent can be watched, shaped, and quietly punished for dissent. The Bureau gives it a name and pours effort into it because catching burglars is one thing. Catching whistleblowers is control, pure power. They hunt the people who took the papers while trying to bury what the papers say. But you can't arrest an idea once it's printed, for good. After the headlines, every sound feels like footsteps at the door, not because they stole money, but because they stole the story the state wanted to control at home. They look for fingerprints, like it's an ordinary burglary, but the real trace isn't on metal. It's on the institution's reputation, right there. Outside government buildings, the story moves faster past hand-to-hand over coffee and disbelief. The leak becomes fuel for movements. No gunshots, no alarms. Just paper thin, quiet, and sharp enough to cut through an entire public narrative in pieces. Overnight, a forgettable office becomes a target not for burglars, but for attention. Because now everyone knows something happened here, today, suddenly. When the leak spreads, the office becomes a switchboard of panic. Every call asks the same thing: how much is out there now? At once. They build a geography of suspicion pins, strings, lists. But the more the net tightens, the clearer the real problem becomes. The documents are already gone, for good. Investigations move on paperwork. But truth, once it's public, moves on people. And people carry it everywhere, all day. After the break-in, the hardest part is staying silent, not out of fear, but out of discipline. A quiet oath to protect the source, no matter. They treat the cabinets like a smashed safe. But the loot can't be recovered with fingerprints because it's already in the public bloodstream, right now. The machinery worked because it believed it was unseen. But the moment the curtain lifts even a little, the whole system looks different, forever after. It's almost nothing, the soft click of a lock. But that sound is the hinge between obedience and exposure. At once. A box of paper shouldn't feel like this, but when the pages expose power, even cardboard gets heavy, so fast. There's always a second where you wonder, is this too far? Then you remember the farthest line was crossed long before you opened the drawer. Long ago. After this, people start looking sideways at authority, not screaming, just noticing. And noticing is where accountability begins, right here. What began in one small office doesn't stay in one small town. The leak becomes national because the system it reveals is national, by nature. Damage control has its own paperwork. When the truth leaks, the first response is still procedure forms, meetings, and containment on repeat. They want names, they want faces. But the people who did this planned for anonymity because the story matters more than credit every time. It isn't one leak, it's a series of choices. What to share, what to protect, and how to keep the source alive, somehow still. Somewhere. It began with a drawer opening. A simple motion like opening any office file except this one opened a scandal, for real. March 8th, 1971. Media, Pennsylvania. One small town, one small office, and a crack appears in a wall, built to look unbreakable, until now. They're doing moral math. Break one law to reveal a larger harm. There's no clean answer, only a decision you can live with. Each day. When institutions panic, they tighten more locks, more rules, more control. But none of it rewinds what's already been revealed to everyone. For some people, it confirms a suspicion they couldn't prove. It wasn't paranoia. It was policy, in writing. Paper is easy to destroy until it's already copied, shared, remembered. At that point, it doesn't burn. It multiplies, out loud. Their trophy isn't gold. It's a folder, something you can't hang on a wall, only release into the world and let it do its work in public. The town goes back to sleep, but the story doesn't. It moves in the dark through mailboxes, newsrooms, and quiet conversations all around. After media, it's like a drawer opens in the public mind, revealing how quietly a system can operate, until someone shines a light for all. When exposure hits, destruction becomes routine, but the irony is brutal. The more they try to erase, the more people suspect there's something worth erasing right now. There are stories you forget by dinner. And then there are stories you can't unread because they change how you interpret everything after. From then, they chase shadows and come up empty. The burglars don't surface because the point was never fame. It was the leak, not fame. After media, risk isn't just protest in daylight. It's walking home at night and wondering who's watching because now you know they might be after all. It's hard to believe a town this small could rattle a federal giant. But history doesn't always arrive with explosions. Sometimes it arrives with paper, not smoke. That drawer-closing sound stays with you. It's the sound of secrecy trying to restore itself after someone pulled it open for good. This was a heist without a gun. The getaway wasn't about speed. It was about silence and a folder that could change everything forever after. The spotlight wasn't invited. It was triggered. And once it hits, every denial has to compete with the evidence already in circulation right now. The shock isn't a single sentence. It's the pattern, how organized it feels. Like interference wasn't an accident, but a method by design. The security failure wasn't technical. It was psychological. They believed nobody would dare touch them, and that belief became the opening that night. They never quickly found the burglars. The case fades. But the damage or the correction doesn't. It keeps working, even now. On camera, the message is clean and confident. In the files, it's operational. And once you see both, you can't pretend they match anymore either. Knowing isn't free. Once you've read what's inside, you can't go back to comfort. You either ignore it or act right now. That night in media becomes a mirror, not just of one agency, but of how easily power can hide behind routine. So easily. Before the digital age, a folder could still outrun a firewall. Copies, envelopes, printing presses, information moving faster than control. Back then, the real theft wasn't paper. It was control over what the public was allowed to know and when in advance. It happened on a quiet street. No crowds, no sirens. And yet the consequence was loud enough to reach the whole country by morning. Sometimes the most incriminating thing is what's missing. A folder removed cleanly, like someone knew exactly where to reach each time. The files didn't come from enemies. They came from the system itself, exposing its methods in its own handwriting, on record. The hunt that follows isn't just for burglars. It's for the narrative who gets to define reality after the files get out, at last. Media teaches a simple lesson. You don't need violence to change history. Sometimes you just need a door, a box, and the courage to share with others. And once that folder left the cabinet, the system could never fully close the drawer again. Not in media anywhere, ever again.